Hey, what's up everyone? My name's Nick and welcome to a quick start guide for a new tabletop game, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game. So this quick start guide is going to be covering the solo mode of the game. It was designed to be played with 3 to 4 players, but they did include a 2-player mode and a solo mode, so we're going to be covering solo mode. Now, in this video, we're not doing an in-depth walkthrough of the rules. There are a ton of good channels on YouTube that make how to play videos like that. This is just meant to kind of get you familiar with the first chapter of the game, get you set up and comfortable enough to start playing. So hope this helps. If you're not already subscribed, definitely encourage you to. The game is divided into 18 chapters that follow the contents of the novel. And I'm going to be making a video series where we play through the game with the solo mode, covering chapter by chapter. So it should be a lot of fun. I've been playing the game a lot lately and really enjoy it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the quick start guide. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and walk you through kind of how I like to set up the solo play. And we'll start with chapter 1. But off screen here, I'm going to actually have chapter 2 as well. And from time to time, we're going to reference this chapter because it introduces a couple elements that I'd like to go over in this video. But just know, again, this is a quick start guide. So as the game progresses, there's going to be new mechanics, new elements that get introduced even later into the game. And we're not going to cover all of those here. But I think chapters 1 and 2 should be a good starting point. So this is how I like to set things up. First, I have my ring token, starting with the black and white side face up. Then I have Frodo, and I'll go ahead and put the one ring next to him because that's kind of the pairing that the game introduces. I have my chapter card, and I have my main deck, shuffled and ready to go. So once you're done reading the flavor text of the chapter, we can go ahead and flip it to its setup side. Now, first, what we're going to do is look at the left for the characters. So in this case, chapter 1 is going to use Frodo, Bilbo, Gandalf, and Pippin. So I'll go ahead and put those characters here. And then what we want to look for is characters with an asterisk next to them. Any character with one of those gets one of these purple tokens. So Frodo and Bilbo. Now what this means is that any character with an asterisk you must use for this chapter. So if you're playing 3-player, then you play with 3 characters. If you're playing 4 people, you play with 4 characters. And then, like I said, solo and 2-player mode have some different rules. But in this case, when you play solo mode, you actually control 4 characters at a time. So even though we're playing solo, we're going to be using 4 characters. So for the sake of chapter 1, these little icons don't really matter. We're just going to use the 4 characters that it tells us to. But if we go ahead real quick and reference chapter 2, so let's say we were doing this chapter. Well, now we have 5 characters. We have Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin, and Gandalf. So that might look something like this. And now I say, okay, Frodo, Sam, and Merry all have to be played. But that means that as the player, I get the choice of, do I want to use Gandalf or do I want to use Pippin? And as you're going to see in a moment, you can actually choose which character to include based on the cards that are drawn. So we don't need to worry about that right now. But again, just for the sake of working through this, let's go ahead and go back to chapter 1. So we're going to have this set up right here. All right, so I have my characters off to the side. I have my board ready to go. So what we're going to do now is grab the main deck. And it's shuffled, we're good to go. I'm gonna take the top card and I'm gonna put it face up next to my chapter card. This is going to be referred to as the lost card, and we'll see in a moment what that does. Now what I'm gonna do is deal out the hands for all 4 players. So normally if we were playing a card game, I might do something like this where I say, hands go like that, and then here's the second wave, so on and so forth until each player has a hand of whatever they need to play the game. But I'm setting this up, or I should say I'm going to orient my game a little differently than the instructions recommend, but it doesn't really matter so long as you keep track of what you're doing. So the instructions will say, Frodo goes here, and then you start with the player to Frodo's left and deal them a card, and then another card, and you go clockwise. When I play, I like to have kind of a 4x4 grid going on. So I'm going to, instead of going from left to right, I'm going to go top down. And you'll see what I mean in a moment. It's all a matter of preference, so long as you keep track of what you're doing. So Frodo gets dealt the one ring, and now, dealing from the top, I'm going to put a card here, a card here, and a card here. And now I'm going to do another column. Oops. There we go. And then a third column. And finally, a fourth column. So we're going to have, like I said, a grid of 4x4. And then I will take the rest of my main deck and I'll just set it off here to the side. Now, normally when you're playing this game like 4 players, each player would have a hand and the other players can't see your hand. When you're playing solo, it very much becomes a puzzle type solitaire game. So all the cards of each character's hand are going to be laid out in front of you. And now we're going to go on to character assignment. Again, instead of going from Frodo's left, we're just going to go from top down. So Frodo's automatically dealt this first row because it's the one that we included the one ring in. So now I'm going to look at the remaining rows here, and one of our characters will have this second row, then another the third, and then the fourth. Now, when you're deciding this, and this will become, a matter of your choice once you gain experience in the game, but when you look at your characters, you're going to want to look at what I call their win cons or their win conditions. And that's the text at the top of their card. So Frodo already has his hand, not much we can do there. If we look at Gandalf, he wants to win 1 or more tricks. Bilbo wants to win 3 or more tricks, and Pippin wants to win the fewest tricks, and that can actually be 0 tricks in this case. So, if I were to look at my cards here, Bilbo wants to be winning the most. So he probably wants the hand with the highest amount of high cards. Gandalf needs to win at least 1 trick, so he's got to have at least 1 good card in his hand. And Pippin, in a perfect world, will win 0 tricks, so we want to give him the hand with the lowest amount of cards. So again, looking here, I would say, all right, this row has a 4, 5, 7, 8. Pretty good. This row here has a 2, a 5, a 4, a 7, and this bottom row has a 3, a 5, a 6, and an 8. So these are all relatively well balanced. This hand here has a 7 and an 8, so I'm going to go ahead and put Bilbo there because it starts with 2 high cards. And then when I look at my last 2, I would say, well, let's see, this has a 2 and a 4, this has a 3 and a 5, so this row right here has slightly lower cards, so I'm going to go ahead and put Pippin there, and I'll put Gandalf there. And there we go. That is now character assignment. Once I'm done with that, I can take these purple icons and save them for later because they are going to become important. Now, let's look at the case just again for argument's sake. Let's say we were playing chapter 2, so Bilbo is not in that chapter, and instead we have Sam, Merry, Pippin, and Gandalf. And Sam and Merry have to be included. So I'm not going to focus too much on this, but let's say for whatever reason I decided to put Sam here, and let's say I decided to put Merry here. And now I have this last hand that does not have a character assigned to it. So I have to choose one of these guys, but I'm allowed to choose which one. So I might say, well, if I look at this hand, it's got some pretty low cards, so I could probably get by with Pippin. Or, oh, this has an 8 in this hand, which is pretty much a definite win, so maybe I might want to put Gandalf there. So you have to make those choices and then play with the consequences. Now, one last thing I want to note is when we look at chapter 2 here, you'll notice that under characters, there's a new mechanic introduced, and that's threat. And so that is Black Riders 1 through 4. So what you're going to do is make a little deck of the Black Riders numbered 1 through 4, give it a little shuffle, and then set it off to the side. Now, what we do after character assignment is we do setup. So you're going to look at the bottom portion of text on each character's card. And once again, going from Frodo down, you're going to follow the setup instructions. So in this case, and we'll switch back to chapter 1 in a sec, but in this case, we look at Frodo. The player dealt the 1 ring as Frodo. Good. You cannot exchange the 1 ring. Cool. Lead the first trick. So Frodo's setup is now done. If we look at Sam next, draw a threat card. So we're going to draw, I'll pull it over here so you can see. We'll go ahead and take the top card of our threat deck and put it up here. And we can see that it's a 4. And the reason that's important is because if you look at Sam's win con, he has to win a specific hills card based on the value of the threat card drawn. So for Sam to win this round, he needs to he needs to win the 4 of hills, which currently isn't out on the board. But if we were to start exchanging with other players and someone had the 4, that might influence our decision. So let's go ahead and get rid of threat, because that is not introduced until chapter 2. Just wanted to show you guys the mechanic. And then let's go ahead and return back to our chapter 1 choices. So I think we had something like this. I could be wrong, but let's say that's what we chose, because Pippin has the lower cards, Gandalf has an 8. I think this is what we were at. So now let's do our actual setup. So Frodo's already good to go. Bilbo has no setup. Pippin, exchange with Frodo, Sam, or Merry. In this case, there's only Frodo. And when you do an exchange, first, unless it says otherwise, they're not optional. You have to do them. And an exchange does mean that Pippin will give Frodo a card and Frodo will give Pippin a card. So if I were to look at this, Frodo, his win con is to win rings. So I don't actually want him to start with rings, because then he has a harder time of winning them. And if I look at Pippin's hand, we don't want him winning tricks. So why don't we go ahead and get rid of Pippin's highest card, the 7 here, and let's just take Frodo's lowest card, the 4. And remember, Frodo cannot exchange the 1 ring. And then I'll look at Gandalf. Add the lost card to your hand. So remember that lost card that we dealt at the beginning? That is going to get added to Gandalf's hand. Now, in a case where Gandalf was not one of our characters, that lost card, it might just stay up there, and that's totally fine. It could give you a little bit of a clue if it's dealt face up and you see the 2 of hills there. If you were playing through the game and you really needed the 2 of hills, well, you know it's right here, so you know it's never going to show up in the deck. So having that knowledge can help. But in this case, Gandalf's card tells us to add it to his hand. And then exchange with Frodo. So we'll have to give a card to Frodo. Don't really want to give him our 8. I don't really see any terrible moves here. So let's just go ahead and swap 6s. So we'll give Frodo the 6 of mountains, and we'll take the 6 of forests. And there you go. That is how to set it up. We've gone through setting up chapter 1. We've gone through setting up chapter 1. We've gone through setting up some of chapter 2. We've seen a couple of different mechanics. So all that's left to do is, why don't we play 1 or 2 tricks just to kind of see how the game goes. And then that should wrap things up. So we're ready to start. Frodo leads the first trick. So I'm going to look at his hand. I'm going to kind of study what I have out here. And let's go ahead and give Bilbo his first win. So Bilbo has that 8 of mountains there, but remember, he needs to win 3 or more. So what I'm going to do is I will play from Frodo's hand the 6 of mountains. I'm going to say that Bilbo plays the 7 of mountains. And now Pippin, he doesn't have a mountain in his hand. So if you have the suit that was the lead suit, so in this case mountains, you have to play it. But if you don't, then you can play anything else from your hand. Now, remember this ring token up here, how it starts on black and white? That means that right now, a player cannot lead the trick with the ring card. As soon as a ring is played, however, that will change, this will flip, and then rings can be led. So if I look at this might not actually be the best move, but just for sake of argument, let's say Pippin, he doesn't have a mountain to play. Let's say he decides to play the 4 ring, and then Gandalf also doesn't have a mountain. So let's say Gandalf just plays his 2 of hills. So now we have finished that, and we're going to see who wins the trick. So the lead suit was a mountain. and the highest rank of that played was a 7. So Bilbo is actually going to win this first trick. Now, it does become important to keep track of which tricks characters have won and how many of them. So I'm going to take this first trick and put it next to Bilbo here. Again, that's just my preference. Now remember, Pippin played a ring card, so as soon as a ring card is played for the first time, this will flip face up, and now players can lead with a ring. And now we're just going to draw from the main deck, and we're going to give each player a new card. And keep note that, like in this case, Gandalf will actually have one leftover card because he took the lost card during setup. So Bilbo won the last trick, so Bilbo's going to lead this trick. And if I go ahead and look at what I have here, it looks like I could do, let's give, that won't really help us. Let's go ahead and give Bilbo a second win. So I'm going to have Bilbo play his 8 of Mountains, and then we're going to go down. So Pippin is going to play his highest card, because we don't want him having high cards, so 5. And then Gandalf here doesn't make too much a difference. He doesn't have a mountain to play. Let's get rid of our 3 of Shadows. And then Frodo also doesn't have a mountain to play. Let's get rid of his 3 of Forests. So once again, we look at this trick. The lead suit was Mountain. Bilbo played the highest mountain, so Bilbo wins that trick. So Bilbo has now won 2 tricks, and I like to put them like this so that I can count 1, 2. And then we'll go ahead and redraw. Let's do 1 or 2 more tricks to get a couple more examples out here. So once again, Bilbo will lead since he won. I'm going to look at my board and what I got going on here. Let's say that, not the best example. Let's say that Bilbo plays here's a good one. Let's say Bilbo plays his 5 of Mountains. Pippin has a mountain, so he'll play the 3. And Gandalf has a 1, so he'll play the 1. Now, Frodo does not currently have a mountain, so he has to play something from his hand. Now, the One Ring is the one special card in this game where, if it's played, you can choose to just automatically win the trick. And Frodo, he does need to win 2 or more rings. So let's go ahead and play the One Ring, which again we can do since rings are playable. And now, normally, Bilbo would have won this trick, but since Frodo played the special One Ring, and we get to choose, and we will choose for Frodo to win this trick. Now, when a player has a specific win con where you have to keep track of certain items, I like to do this here, where I put the trick next to the player, and then I put the special item off to the side. So Frodo's currently won only 1 ring. Let's go ahead and play 1 more hand and see if we can satisfy at least 1 character's win con. So here's what we're dealt. Frodo's going to lead this trick, and if I look at what I've got, it looks like, okay, I see a good play here. So I want, oh wait, I thought I did. Yeah, so Gandalf has a ring, and I want that ring to go to Frodo. And Gandalf does not have a shadow, which means when it comes to Gandalf's turn, we can pick what we play. So Frodo's going to lead with the 7 of Shadow. Bilbo will play his 1. Pippin will play his 4. And Gandalf, not having any other choices, will choose, and will choose the 5 ring. So now we look at this trick. Frodo wins because he led with Shadow and played the highest Shadow. So now we're going to take that ring card and put it here, and we'll put Frodo's second trick right here. And now if we look at our board state, Frodo has won 2 rings, and if we look at his win con, he has to win 2 or more rings in order to beat the chapter. So Frodo's win con has now been satisfied. I'm going to take those purple tokens from earlier and put one on Frodo. We continue to play, continue to go through tricks, and anytime a character's win con is satisfied, you put the little token on them, and then by the end of the round, or if possible, sooner than the round, if there's no way you could lose, we want to have all 4 characters having satisfied their win con. If that's true, then you beat the chapter and you move on to chapter 2. If it's not, then you reshuffle everything, reset up, and play it again until you win. And there you go. That is a quick start guide for the game. All right. That should be everything you kind of need to get started with the game. I hope you found this little quick start guide helpful. Like I said, give the video a thumbs up. Let me know what you thought of the game and of the video in the comments. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, I definitely would encourage you to subscribe because I'm going to be doing a video series where I play through chapter by chapter of this game with the solo mode, and I'm really excited. So hope to see you there. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.